Hey guys, it's Ellen. Welcome to my channel. Today, I thought we'd do something a little different, a little fun. Do you have a hard time sometimes figuring out what kind of things to paint or how to paint or just trying to get yourself out of a rut? Well, sometimes it really helps to look at the masters. If you look at somebody like Matisse, Manet, or anybody else, and just interpret something that they've done and just kind of play around with the strokes, the colors, the feel of the painting to get you out of the rut. So today I decided we'd do something that would kind of interpret Matisse's, landscape and couleur. Very graphic nature, just the simple strokes, the lines and the colors. I just love his work. I think it's great, and it's a great way to play around with color and composition. You can actually use watercolor almost in opaque fashion by just using a little bit of water with it, and even sometimes adding a little gouache, which I will show you in this tutorial. This is a fun little tutorial, super easy. Any beginner can do this. All you need is a kind of rounded tip brush. I'm going to use a filbert brush. And you just, like I said, put in the strokes, the colors, and play around with circles and lines. It's simple as that. So I'd love to hear who your favorite masters are. Who do you love that a super famous artist? It could be Monet, Van Gogh, whatever. I'm always curious to see what other people like, what the styles they like. I like very expressive styles, not naturally and gravitated towards impressionistic painters. And I also love the WPA project kind of painters, which are de Kooning, Motherwell, Pollock, Dubuffet. I love Paul Klee. Francis Bacon. These are the people that I love. And of course, the modern ones would be Basquiat. Actually, I want to go see a show in New York coming up soon. So, leave a comment section. Leave a comment about who you love. I'd love to hear it. It's always fun to talk about what other people are interested in. So, without further ado, let's get started on this fun Matisse-inspired watercolor. All right, everyone. I like to go over my supplies because I think it's important that people who are looking at tutorials know exactly what you're painting on, how you use them. And I'd like to do my videos in real time, basically me talking as I'm doing them, because that's how you would do it in a class. It's fine if you edited all that stuff out, then most people get lost in translation what the person is doing in between all that editing. Sometimes I do that, but I prefer not to do that because I feel like you're not giving the viewer the full extent of how it actually is created. So here I'm going to be using my Arches 100% cotton cold pressed paper 9x12 sheet. I'm not going to use the whole sheet. I'm just going to place my image kind of in the middle. My palette that I have my paints in here, they're always in the description box when I talk about them and as I use them, but you don't necessarily have to use all the colors that I use. I use Holbein because I prefer them. I like the pigments in them. You can use whatever you want. You don't have to use exactly my paint colors. It's fun to play with. Because Holbein has such a huge variety of colors. It's amazing. Notice that I don't have any green in here. I like to make my green. So that's the one thing I like to make. And of course, you can't make a red. So you need to have the primaries, a red and a blue and a yellow. So those are the most extreme things you have to have. For brushes, various brushes. But for this particular tutorial, I want more rounded brushes. I have this filbert brush. It's perfect for this. This is a Princeton Velvet Touch number 8 filbert brush. And maybe I'll use my Princeton 8 round, or I might even play with a flat wash brush. That's like a 3/8 inch. Paper towels and water jars here. I just put the colors here. So Matisse was a phenomenal artist in the Impressionistic movement. He did a lot of creative, expressive kind of, gestural kind of paintings, but he also did this really great graphic type paintings. The jazz cutouts are a prime example of that. I remember doing a project in college on this. But this particular, the landscape at couleur, I love this one because it's just a way to play with color and composition and placement. So it's inspired by him. As I'm looking at the picture, I'm not going to copy the picture. I'm being inspired I'll do my own kind of trees, but here and this way. And you don't have to follow a particular photograph or look. You can be imaginary with your paintings. And that's what creativity is all about. Why I want to use a rounded brush, because you can see by the strokes, they're kind of rounded. They're not pointy, they're rounded lines. They're rounded. So more graphic strokes. And of course, that is oil paint. This is watercolor. So it's going to lend itself to be completely different. What would be great if you use gouache with that, be really perfect because it's almost like an opaque watercolor. So it's almost kind of the same feeling as acrylic. Or I use oil. Or you can use acrylic, you know, because oil paint can be toxic to people. So here's a way you can use watercolor in the same fashion. I have this color called verdtier blue, right? And see, the pigments are pretty intense. If you just use them straight from the tube, very thick, minimal water, you'll get that thin kind of flat look. So here I'll just play around with some strokes. It's a little loose. Yeah, excuse me, a little translucent here, but that's okay. So you see how I'm just making these little strokes? I pretend like this is tree, you know, so you had this blue tree. You're just making little short strokes, getting expressive with the tree, right? I know it doesn't look like a tree right now, but it could. And notice how, like, because it's losing the paint on the end here, I might have to go back on the edges and just fill that in, right? See this, so I go fill this line in like that with this brush, but they're like short rounded strokes. Okay, now I'll mix my green, which I always like to do, which is with the cadmium deep and my peacock blue. The two make a beautiful bright green, which I love. And if I want to make it even lighter, chartreusey kind of color green tones, I'll just take that same green here, clean off my brush. That's the clanky noise, you know, here. See, if people edit it, they edit out the clanky noise. But again, I like to do my tutorials in real time, so you feel like you're actually painting with me. Just, you know. So then you can add, like he has a little grasses. Again, pretend like a little grass. Now I'm going to make these ones a little more pointy. I'm going to change it up. I'm going to pretend like there's a meadow. You're walking down this way. You know, he's got little flowers this way. I'm going to go like this way. But it's just the idea of the strokes. Just this linear strokes. See that? Little movement. And you kind of make like a walkway. Kind of going this way. And just imagine that. It's just inspired by Matisse. And then you can make little grasses. And I have that darker green. I'm just putting it right on my brush just after that green. And just adding it right in here. The smarter thing to do if you don't want it to look too much like a watercolor, or more like that flat graphic look, is to wait till each layer dries. Now on this particular painting, you don't need to use arch paper. I'm using it. You can use cheap paper for this because we're not doing any wet and wet and blending. This is where you can get off using cheap paper. I probably should have did this on a piece of cheap paper, but it was right here, so I decided to grab what I had. But it's inspired, so it's not exactly exact to be like that. So here I'm going to add some deeper, darker tones of that green, right? I liked how his tree trunk was an orange, a bright orange. See that? So I won't make my tree trunk a typical tree trunk color. And I have a brilliant orange here. Right? You can just do like the same kind of wiggle movement. And mine's a little bit brighter, but again, inspired by Matisse. I have this bright rose here. I can kind of put that into, change it up. It doesn't have to be exactly like anything. It just has to be fun, right? Now I do want to put more flowers in here and other colors. I like the ultramarine, deep blue that I have. Remember, he had blues as trees, basically. See? Once that color dries, you can go over this one and use a darker color. I think that was kind of cool. And again, to make it linear, maybe you have to go back in and fix that end of the marking that you did just to fill it in, because this paper is really just soaks it up. So basically we're just making these little marks all over, right? You can have the green, maybe make an aqua, got the peacock blue, add a little more peacock blue up here, that green, so it's more of a turquoise. Play around with that. You can also add white gouache. I have some over here somewhere. So if you just take your white gouache, I put some up here, down here. And you add it. I'm going to add it here to the turquoise. You see? Just adding the white gouache alone to your watercolor is going to make them kind of opaque. Look at that. So if you can't afford to have all the watercolors and all the gouache, my suggestion is play around with just white. Can I do some green over here? This turquoise. This will all come together in a bit. This is where you play. See, he left a lot of white, then he did some areas that were not white. This is all inspired. You know, you don't even know actually what it is actually, but it's just kind of fun. So I'll go back to this trees. Oops, I bricked up my color. I could even just add some green trees. Just these linear lines. I can clean up that. Just start taking some yellow. I have some yellow up here. See? I mean, when you look at his painting, I guess it looks like a combination of a garden or a path or something, but it's interpretation. So interpreting like bright yellow field, right? Walkway. Maybe some yellow out here. There's a path back here, so maybe I'll add more green. And then this here, you can start to do some like fill-in shapes. So you had a few fill-in shapes, little scratch marks kind of going like this. See? We're just making a painting, we're creating our own inspired kind of look. Very graphic, kind of loose. I do want some flowers in here. I have that bright rose, but it's pretty intense and I want it more muted. So I would add the white gouache to it. See that? Soft and pretty. And you're just making these little dots. Just very graphic. And that's kind of like he was aiming for in a lot of his paintings at the end, like these jazz cutouts, these like cool graphic kind of florals. The bright orange would be pretty in there for flowers. So I put that brilliant orange color. I'm gonna add a little bit of the gouache to it just to tone it down just a touch. See that? And again, you can add, make them rounder, see? And you can add a center, you can pretend they're poppies. This is just a fun tutorial on getting yourself out of your comfort zone and, you know, thinking that you have to be one way when you interpret something. So the trees were blue, don't have to be blue. It may look juvenile to you right now, but it all makes sense. So I'm going to grab the yellow. And yeah, he did have some muted colors. I mean, there are a lot of bright ones right here. I could grab my yellow and mix it with my burnt umber and make it more of a tan kind of walkway. I'll grab my white gouache. See that? And we can start to play with pretending that, you know, this is the walkway. Again, I'm interpreting it. Filling it in fast. These are just things I want you guys to look at. It's great to look at the masters. And I love the impressionistic movement. As you can see, I've done some impressionistic paintings. But there's a way to use watercolor in a different technique as opposed to your typical wet on wet blending. You can play with it in this way. You know, if you want to actually water down the turquoise, right, kind of fill it in, you can do that as well and go back over with another color. It doesn't have to all be these linear lines that I was doing. And then in between the green and turquoise, you can add some bright green. I want you guys to play up. And then see how this kind of all similar tone except that dark blue. You want that background to recede. So I'm going to add this ultramarine blue, and then I have a Prussian blue back here. You can start to get some real deep colors. Again, I'm just doing these little lines. I'm creating my own little field. I'm imagining it. I did do a tree similar to his, but the rest is kind of my own thing. You see, he doesn't have a walkway going in like that, but I did. So back here, I could do some more trees. Interpret that again with the orange. Do another, he had another tree over here. I'll put another tree so it doesn't look lonely. And my brush got a little dirty. I want you guys to play with brushes, play with paint, play with color. Don't listen to the people who tell you you can't use watercolor this way and that way, and there are rules. There are certain rules, definitely certain rules for particular types of paintings that you want to do. If you want to do layering, glazing, serious botanicals, you really kind of do need to follow some of the rules. But if you're just exploring watercolor, there's no need for all that. You can get to that later. You know, we're not in, serious art school right now, although I did all that. And you have to go through a whole foundation. Part of that foundation was to look at the masters. I actually did a whole project, like I said, with Matisse jazz cutouts my freshman year in college. So here I'm going back in, I'm grabbing some more of this yellow, making some more green. And I'm going to make the trees green and blue over here. So I'm doing those little dashes again. I'm going back. Just simple dashes. Now these are green. I'm going to add that blue. Sorry for the clanking, but like I said, I like to do real-time tutorials. I could edit all this out, but I'm not going to. I want you to be with me as I create this. Now see how I'm using this basically straight from the tube with a little bit of water. You can play around with watercolor this way. There's a multitude of things you can do with it. The one thing I love about this medium is that it dries fast. Now, some people get real intimidated by this, and I can understand why, because you can't fix a mistake like you could in oil. But this is the thing that pulls you out of your comfort zone. You kind of have to work a little bit faster and think a little on your feet. So there's some of my trees. I might put some more back over here. See, it's coming out kind of cool. I'm kind of digging it. And some people might be like, what is this? I don't like it. But that's great. That's your interpretation. I think art is all subjective. Some people think, some of the abstracts I've done are not actual abstracts, but abstract really means that you're abstracting from the actual realistic form. It could be semi, it could be half, it could be total. So, like I said, some people interpret things a certain way and certain rules, and just don't follow that kind of mantra. So now I'm going in and adding the ultramarine blue, deep, ultramarine blue deep. It's a little wet in here, so it's getting a little muddy, but that's okay. You can have the marks and then kind of blend it also. There's the watercolor coming into play. But you get the feeling, right? And if you're in the French countryside, it'd be kind of cool to do something like this, right? To interpret the lavender feels this way. Now you can get a little skinny and fun and free with some of these little marks. Might do some down here. I don't have to follow Matisse to the T. And then do some more greens. Got that turquoise again and mixed in with this green. Made another turquoise. This is the fun part. Exploration of watercolor, interpreting how you would do things. I have a retreat in France coming up in September, and I think there's a few spots left, and I put it on my Instagram. And I will be practicing some of this technique also there, because it's fun just to play with different techniques. You see, we kind of, you don't want to fill in, he has it completely filled in certain areas, but I'm not going to fill in all around by the trees. I feel like that is too much. And we can take the yellow And put some yellow in here, some solid yellow flowers. We'll put in the center in a bit. Putting in some solid yellow. You can treat some of the watercolors like gouache if they can go over the paint. See, doing the yellow right over the green. I'm going to come back and do some pink over that too. And I'm going to take the orange that we had, mix it with the yellow and a little gouache, and kind of put some little linear lines back here, interpreting that. So what you do is you look at a master painting like Matisse or a Monet, a Manet, Cézanne, Van Gogh, and you see how they make their strokes. Oh, Seurat isn't fantastic. That's the dots. And try and play around with creating paintings in that same form. These are the things that help you kind of just grow as an artist. I can make this green a little bit darker, and I'll put some linear lines going this way, like the little grasses back here in the dark. And I can kind of mush them too. He did both, but it was pretty graphic, I think. I was going to do a tutorial of the flower market kind of, so let me know if you're interested in more graphic kind of stuff like that. Also, if you go Google flower market posters, you'll know what I'm talking about. And that's a great tutorial you could do with using gouache, by the way. See, now we look like we're in the field in France, even though they're blue trees, right? And we can go back. I'm gonna grab my pink again with my gouache and put some more pink flowers up here. Just making circles. You guys can paint circles. I just did lines, circles, and little wiggles for the trees. I know you can do this. Get yourself out of your comfort zone. You can just put some little pink kind of dashes in this walkway here just to get more impressionistic style. The pink can get even bolder. See, I'm going to get darker on my pink. Maybe back here. So it's like a floral garden walkway inspired by Matisse. And you could paint a whole series. So say you have a nice beautiful floral garden or some photographs of your garden in the summertime, even though it's not summer yet. This is what you can do. You can play around with the kind of style as this and go ahead and paint it this way. So now see, you get some nice dark greens in here, but we want to interpret some. I'm taking some of that blue to go in here as well, this deep ultramarine blue. It will help enhance some of the flowers just by adding that deep dark blue right in here. Not everywhere. It's really simple. You can put some of that blue for shading, see, across the walkway. Right, like those flowers are creating shadows. See how I did that? And make the blue with the little green and make some more stems back here. Again, all inspired by Matisse. I just love some of his work. I'm going to go back in here in the trees and go do some more linear marks. Kind of mush in the colors a little more, like you see. Now that it's dry, I'm going to go in and put some more of these in here. Same thing down in here. I just want people to play with color and fun. So at the end here, I'm just going to fill in a few more spots with my lime green in between some of the flowers. Maybe add a little more bright green too. I do want to fill mine in a little bit more. And I didn't use this color, but it's a fantastic color that Holbein has. This lilac. Look at that. So the verdtier blue and the lilac. You could throw some of this in the trees. Very impressionistic looking color. And you can put some back here. I would do little teeny dots like the little lilac in the field. Some back here. Right? You can put the ultramarine blue in the center. Put some down here. This kind of technique is just too much fun. When everything's dry, you can grab, I would grab this is where you get bold. So a black color, this is the neutral tint color. Just put a little dot in the center of the poppies and the pink flowers and yellow flowers. And it gets really graphic when you do that. Or you can put blue. But see how I'm putting in the little poppy kind of colors? You don't have to put a center in if you don't want to. So this is how I would interpret something like Matisse's landscape in France. So tell me what you think of this kind of style, if you like it, you don't like it. I'm always curious to see what people are interested in. And I feel like you can do so much with this kind of look. I'm going to go back in here and add a few more bright green. Just kind of finishing her up, balancing it. Maybe add some green back here. And kind of mushing it a little bit in here. Right, we start off with the linear lines, but then I might just go in here and kind of really just kind of fill it in a little bit. It's always good to step back and see where you're missing, if you like it or not. And there we go. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I know I had fun doing it, and I might go in and keep kind of like adding a little more. I take that verdtier blue, just a little dots on here. Who's to say you have to do lines with everything? Verdtier blue kind of adding in here. This verdtier blue is so beautiful. It becomes very impressionistic when you kind of just keep adding little dots. Right? I might add some more bright flowers in the front. And I can add a bright green, a bright pink dot inside the light pink dot. And there we go. So guys, play around with color, play around with strokes. I didn't even use the number 8, just use the filbert brush the whole time. And look at the masters. See some really cool stuff, see what you're drawn to. I'd love to hear your favorite artists. Put them in the comment section below. I'd love to hear who you love. I love Impressionistic, but I also love the WPA project movement with de Kooning and Motherwell and Jackson Pollock. I'm so drawn to the 40s, and that was such a great time in the United States with all these artists as well. So love to hear it. Let's talk about it, and yeah, enjoy. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon.